My son said at dinner, "You eat too much for your age." When I got my test results, the doctor turned pale. "How are you still alive?" I installed a hidden camera and couldn't believe what I saw. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I had lived in my modest 2-story house in suburban Ohio for 37 years. My husband, Robert, passed away 5 years ago, leaving me the house, a decent savings account, and our small but profitable rental properties. At 72, I considered myself fortunate. My health was good. I volunteered at the local library twice a week, and I had my son Michael and his wife Jessica living just 20 minutes away. Michael visited every Sunday for dinner. It was our tradition, one I cherished deeply. He was my only child, and after his father died, these dinners became the anchor of my week. I would cook his favorite pot roast, and we would talk about his work at the insurance company, their plans, their lives. But something shifted 3 months ago. It started small. Michael began commenting on my eating habits. "Mom, don't you think that's a lot of butter?" he'd say, watching me prepare mashed potatoes. Or, "You really shouldn't have seconds at your age." I laughed it off initially. Maybe he was concerned about my health? Wasn't that what good sons did? Then came that Sunday dinner in late September. I had made my usual spread: pot roast, roasted vegetables, homemade rolls. I was reaching for a second helping when Michael set down his fork with an audible clank. "You eat too much for your age," he said flatly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Jessica shifted uncomfortably beside him, her eyes fixed on her plate. I felt my face flush with embarrassment and confusion. Too much? I was a healthy weight, active for my age. Where was this coming from? "Michael, I'm serious, Mom. At your age, you need to watch yourself." His tone was cold, clinical. This wasn't concern. This was something else entirely. That night, I lay awake replaying the conversation. The way he had looked at me, not with love or worry, but with something that made my stomach turn. Impatience? Frustration? 2 weeks later, I began feeling ill. It started with persistent nausea, then dizziness, then exhaustion so profound I could barely climb my stairs. I attributed it to a flu, but when it didn't improve after 10 days, I made an appointment with Dr. Harrison, my physician of 15 years. The blood work took 3 days to process. When Dr. Harrison called me back to his office, I knew something was terribly wrong. I had never seen him look so pale. "Margaret," he said, his hands trembling slightly as he held my file, "how are you still alive?" The words didn't register at first. I stared at him, waiting for clarification, for this to make sense. "Your blood work shows extremely elevated levels of arsenic and antifreeze compounds, ethylene glycol. Margaret, someone is poisoning you." The room tilted. Poisoning. The word felt foreign, impossible. This was America in the 21st century. This was my life, my safe suburban existence. Who would poison me? But even as the question formed, I knew. The image flashed before me. Michael, opening my refrigerator with ease, preparing my tea while I set the table, insisting I drink more water. "You're dehydrated, Mom." Always so concerned, always so attentive. My son. "We need to report this to the police immediately," Dr. Harrison continued, "and you need to be admitted to the hospital for chelation therapy to remove these toxins from your system." I shook my head, surprising even myself. "Not yet." "Margaret, I need to be sure." My voice sounded strange, distant. "I need proof. Because accusing your son of attempted murder, your only child, the boy you raised, loved, sacrificed everything for, required more than blood work. It required absolute certainty. It required evidence that would hold up not just in a court of law, but in the court of my own shattered heart. Dr. Harrison reluctantly agreed to begin outpatient treatment while I gathered my thoughts. He prescribed medications to help purge the toxins and made me promise to return in 48 hours. I drove home in a daze. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they went numb. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for 20 minutes, staring at my house. My home. The place where I had raised Michael, where we had celebrated birthdays and Christmases, where his father had died in my arms. How had it come to this? I walked through my house that evening like a stranger in a museum. Every room held memories that now felt poisoned, more poisoned than my own blood. The kitchen where I had taught Michael to bake cookies. The living room where he had opened Christmas presents. The dining room table where, just weeks ago, he had told me I ate too much. How long had he been doing this? Weeks? Months? I opened my refrigerator with shaking hands. Orange juice, milk, leftover casserole, the pitcher of iced tea I drank from daily. Any of these could be contaminated. All of these could be contaminated. I thought of Michael's easy access to my home. I had given him a key years ago, trusted him completely. He could walk in any time. He probably had been walking in, systematically poisoning my food and drink while I was at the library or running errands. The realization made my knees buckle. I grabbed the counter for support. Why? The answer came with sickening clarity. My estate. The house now worth nearly $400,000 in this market. The rental properties generating steady income. The savings account, modest but substantial. My life insurance policy, another $200,000. I was worth more dead than alive. I sank into a kitchen chair, my mind racing through recent months. Michael's increasing visits. His insistence on helping with groceries, putting things away in my pantry and refrigerator. Jessica's strange silences, her inability to meet my eyes. The way they had asked about my will just 6 weeks ago, casually, over dinner. Do you have everything in order, Mom? It's important at your age. At my age. Those words again. Fear washed over me in waves. My son wanted me dead. My own child, the baby I had nursed and raised and loved unconditionally, was methodically murdering me. The betrayal felt worse than the poison itself. For a moment, one terrible, dark moment, I considered simply giving up. What was the point? If Michael hated me this much, if I had failed so completely as a mother, perhaps. No. The word erupted from somewhere deep inside me, primal and fierce. No, I would not make this easy for him. I would not lie down and die so he could collect his inheritance without consequence. If he wanted me gone, he would face justice. He would face the truth of what he had done. I stood up, steadier now. Anger was replacing fear, and anger gave me clarity. I needed evidence. Irrefutable, documented evidence that would stand up in court. Dr. Harrison's blood work was a start, but I needed more. I needed to catch them in the act. That night, I barely slept. Instead, I sat at my computer researching. Hidden cameras, small, wireless, easy to install. I found a set on Amazon. 4 cameras disguised as everyday objects. A clock, a phone charger, a smoke detector, a picture frame. They connected to an app on my phone, recording continuously to a cloud server. I ordered them with express shipping. Next, I called my lawyer, Donald Pritchard, an old friend of Robert's. I left a vague message about needing to discuss estate security measures. I would meet with him once I had concrete evidence. Then came the hardest part. I had to continue as normal. I had to let Michael keep coming to Sunday dinners. I had to smile and play the role of unsuspecting mother while my own son tried to kill me. The thought made me physically ill, but I had no choice. If he suspected I knew, he might run or destroy evidence, or worse, escalate. Dr. Harrison's medications were helping. I could feel my strength slowly returning. I poured out all the open food in my refrigerator and pantry, replacing everything with sealed items from the store. I would only drink bottled water. I opened myself. I would be vigilant. The cameras arrived 2 days later. I installed them myself. The clock in the kitchen, the charger in the living room, the smoke detector in the hallway, the picture frame in the dining room. My hands shook as I positioned each one, but I forced myself to be thorough. Every angle covered. Every possible location where Michael might contaminate my food or drink. Then I waited. Sunday approached with the weight of an execution date. I cooked pot roast again, kept my phone charged, my cameras recording. When Michael's car pulled into my driveway at 5 o'clock, I took a deep breath, pasted on a smile, and opened the door. "Hi, honey," I said, my voice almost steady. Right on time. He kissed my cheek, and I felt my skin crawl. But I smiled. I had to smile. The trap was set. Monday morning, I sat in Donald Pritchard's office with my phone in my trembling hands. The leather chair felt too big, the office too formal for the horror I was about to share. Donald had been Robert's best friend since college. He had drafted our wills, handled the estate when Robert died, attended every major milestone in Michael's life. "Margaret, you sounded distressed on the phone," Donald said, his kind eyes filled with concern. "What's going on?" I showed him Dr. Harrison's blood work first, watched his expression shift from confusion to shock to fury. Then I explained about the cameras, about my suspicions. His face went white. "Jesus Christ, Margaret. You need to go to the police right now." "I need video evidence first," I said firmly. "I need absolute proof." "You have proof, the blood work." "I need proof of who did it, Donald. I need the police to have an airtight case." I couldn't say it, couldn't articulate the deeper truth. I needed to see it myself. Some part of me still hoped I was wrong, that there was another explanation, that my son hadn't betrayed me this completely. Donald leaned back in his chair, studying me. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, but we're documenting everything. Today, we're creating a new will, with a clause stating that anyone found to have harmed you is immediately disinherited. And we're making copies of your medical records and storing them here, with me." We spent 2 hours updating my estate documents. Michael would inherit nothing if convicted of harming me. Everything would go to various charities instead. The irony was savage. By trying to kill me for money, he would ensure he received nothing. As I left Donald's office, I felt a small shift inside me. Not quite peace, but something close to control. I had taken action. I had protected myself legally. That afternoon, Sunday dinner was still playing on a loop in my mind. I had reviewed the camera footage a dozen times. Michael had arrived, Jessica trailing behind him. Dinner had proceeded normally, too normally. They had eaten, made small talk, helped me clear the table. Nothing suspicious, nothing I could use. But then, on Tuesday, everything changed. I was at the library, volunteering my usual shift, when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the kitchen camera. I stepped into the back office, hands shaking as I opened the app. Michael was in my kitchen. Alone. It was 2 in the afternoon. I wasn't supposed to be home. I watched, my heart hammering, as he moved with practiced ease. He opened my refrigerator, pulled out the orange juice I had bought just yesterday. From his jacket pocket, he retrieved a small glass bottle. Brown, medicinal looking. He glanced around, listening, making sure he was alone. Then he unscrewed my orange juice and poured a careful measure of liquid from his bottle into it. He swirled the container gently, mixing it, then replaced it in the refrigerator exactly where it had been. He pocketed the brown bottle, wiped down the juice container with his sleeve. and left. The entire act took 90 seconds. I sat frozen in the library office, my entire body numb. There it was. Incontrovertible proof. My son, poisoning my food, methodical and cold. This wasn't a moment of passion or anger. This was premeditated murder. I wanted to scream. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I sat very still, downloading the video file to 3 separate locations: my phone, my email, Donald's secure server. I couldn't risk losing this evidence. When I finally trusted my legs to hold me, I drove straight to the police station. Detective Sarah Chen was assigned to my case. She was younger than I expected, perhaps 40, with sharp eyes and an air of competence that steadied my nerves. I showed her everything: the blood work, the video, the timeline of my illness. She watched the kitchen footage 3 times, her expression growing harder with each replay. "Mrs. Patterson, you're lucky to be alive," she said quietly. "This is attempted murder, possibly conspiracy if his wife is involved. We need to move carefully. If we spook him before we can make an arrest, he might flee or destroy additional evidence." "What do I do?" My voice sounded small, frightened. "You keep acting normal. Keep the cameras running. We're going to get a warrant for his home, his car, his phone records. We'll coordinate with the prosecutor's office." "But Margaret," she looked at me directly, "this is going to get worse before it gets better. Once he realizes you're not dying fast enough, he might escalate." The words chilled me, but I nodded. I had come too far to back down now. That evening, Michael called. "Hey, Mom, just checking in. You feeling okay? You seemed a little tired on Sunday." I closed my eyes, forced cheerfulness into my voice. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just fine." Detective Chen moved quickly. Within 48 hours, she had secured search warrants for Michael's home and vehicle. The plan was surgical: execute the warrants Thursday morning while Michael was at work, minimizing confrontation. I would be at the police station, safe, giving my formal statement. Wednesday night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Michael as a little boy, his gap-toothed smile, the way he used to climb into my lap for bedtime stories, his proud face at his college graduation. How did that child become this monster? Thursday morning arrived cold and gray. I was sitting in Detective Chen's office, signing paperwork, when her phone rang. She listened, her face darkening, then cursed under her breath. "What is it?" I asked. "Your son got a tip-off? Someone warned him. He's cleared out his house. They're finding nothing. No poison, no contaminated substances, nothing." My stomach dropped. "How? Who would—" "We're investigating. Could be someone in the department, could be a neighbor who saw the warrant team arrive. Either way, he knows we're onto him." 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Michael. Detective Chen nodded at me to answer, quickly setting up a recording device. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Michael's voice was tight, with barely controlled rage. "Police just ransacked my house. They're saying something about poisoning? Have you lost your mind?" I had rehearsed this moment with Detective Chen, but actually hearing his voice, hearing the accusation in his tone as if he were the victim, made my hands shake. "Michael, I have evidence. I know what you've been doing." Silence. Then, "Evidence? Of what?" "Mom, I'm worried about you. This sounds like paranoia. Maybe you need to see a doctor." "I saw a doctor. He found arsenic and antifreeze in my blood. I have you on camera, Michael, putting poison in my orange juice." Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had changed completely. Cold, calculating. "You don't know what you're doing, Mom. If you pursue this, you'll destroy our family. People will think you're senile, making crazy accusations. I'll have you declared mentally incompetent. You'll lose everything: your house, your independence, your dignity." The threat hung between us like a blade. "And the video can be explained," he continued smoothly. I was checking your food because I was worried about you. You've been acting strange, forgetting things. I was trying to help. By poisoning me? By trying to protect you from yourself. His voice was so reasonable now, so measured. This was the Michael who sold insurance, who convinced people to trust him with their futures. Think about this carefully, Mom. You're 72 years old, living alone, making wild accusations against your only child. Who will believe you? Jessica's voice murmured something in the background. Michael covered the phone imperfectly. I caught fragments. Handle it. Just needs to... few more weeks. My blood ran cold. I'm going to give you 24 hours to think about this, Michael said. Drop this insanity, and we'll forget it ever happened. I'll even help you find a nice assisted living facility. But if you go forward, Mom, I promise you'll regret it. The line went dead. I sat frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear. Detective Chen stopped the recording, her face grim. That was a clear threat, she said. We have him making threats, acknowledging the poisoning obliquely. But Margaret, he's right about one thing. This is going to be ugly. Defense attorneys will attack your credibility, your age, your mental state. Are you prepared for that? Was I? I thought about what lay ahead. Court testimony, public scrutiny, my son's face across a courtroom, his lawyers trying to paint me as a confused old woman. The humiliation, the pain, the loss of the family structure I had clung to even after Robert's death. But then I thought about that video. Michael's cold efficiency as he poisoned my food, the calculated way he had spent months slowly killing me. I thought about other elderly people he might do this to if he went unpunished. Other mothers who might not be lucky enough to discover the truth in time. Yes, I said firmly. I'm prepared. Over the next 3 days, I stayed with my friend Barbara from the library. Barbara asked no questions, simply set up her guest room and made soup. Detective Chen called regularly with updates. They had found Michael's purchase history for chemicals matching the compounds in my blood. They had traced his internet searches about untraceable poisons. They had phone records showing dozens of calls between Michael and Jessica discussing my deteriorating health. The case was building. But so was my exhaustion. Emotional, physical, spiritual. On Sunday, I slept for 14 hours straight. Monday, I sat in Barbara's garden, watching birds, trying to remember what peace felt like. I needed to rest to gather my strength, because I knew Michael wouldn't give up this easily. The letter arrived at Barbara's house on Wednesday morning. Thick cream-colored paper, Michael's handwriting on the envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Mom, I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation. I realize now how my words must have sounded. Harsh, threatening. That wasn't my intention. I was scared, defensive. The truth is, I'm terrified of losing you. I know you have questions about what happened. I want to explain everything. There's context you don't understand. Medical reasons for some of my actions that I should have told you about earlier. Can we meet? Just you and me. Somewhere public if that makes you comfortable. Please, Mom. Let me explain before this goes any further. I love you. I've always loved you. Michael. The words were perfectly chosen, exactly calibrated to tug at my heart. I could picture him crafting this letter, maybe with Jessica's help, knowing exactly which emotional buttons to push. The scared son. The misunderstood child. The plea for a chance to explain. I read it 3 times, searching for sincerity, finding only manipulation. Barbara peered over my shoulder. What does it say? He wants to meet, to explain. I set the letter down carefully, as if it might contaminate me. He thinks I'll give him a chance to talk his way out of this. Will you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Part of me, The mother part that had loved him for 43 years wanted desperately to believe there was an explanation. But I thought about the video, the cold efficiency, the months of systematic poisoning. I thought about, you eat too much for your age, and how are you still alive? No, I said quietly. I won't. Barbara squeezed my shoulder. Good. You want some tea? That afternoon, Detective Chen called with news. Jessica's lawyer reached out. She wants to make a deal, testify against Michael in exchange for reduced charges. Apparently, the marriage is falling apart. She's claiming she was coerced, that Michael threatened her. Is that true? Hard to say. The phone records show she was an active participant in planning. But juries are sympathetic to women who claim abuse. The prosecutor is considering it. A second letter arrived Friday, this time delivered by Jessica herself. Barbara answered the door while I watched from the living room window. Jessica looked terrible. Thinner, dark circles under her eyes, her usual polished appearance gone. She handed Barbara an envelope and left without a word. This letter was different, shorter, more desperate. Margaret, I'm so sorry. I never wanted any of this. Michael convinced me you were suffering, that you wanted to die, but were too proud to admit it. He said we were helping you, easing your pain. I was stupid and weak, and I believed him. But I know the truth now. He lied to me too. He's been lying to everyone. Please don't let him destroy both our lives. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. Just please, please give me a chance to make this right. Jessica? I read it aloud to Barbara. She snorted. Now they're turning on each other, like rats leaving a sinking ship. She might be telling the truth, I said, though I didn't quite believe it. Does it matter? She still helped poison you. She was right. Whether Jessica was a victim or an accomplice, she had participated in my attempted murder. The law would sort out her culpability. My job was simply to survive and testify. That evening, I called Detective Chen. Tell the prosecutor I won't meet with Michael. Tell Jessica's lawyer I have no objection to a plea deal if it helps convict him, and tell them both that I'm not backing down. Good, Chen said with satisfaction. Michael's lawyer is already making noise about your mental state, trying to get the charges dismissed. We need you strong and clear-headed. After I hung up, I sat with Barbara in her cozy living room. She had been my friend for 15 years, had supported me through Robert's death, had asked no questions when I showed up at her door needing sanctuary. Thank you, I said quietly, for this, for believing me. Oh, honey, Barbara patted my hand. I've met Michael. I always thought there was something off about that boy. Too smooth. Too calculating? Exactly. She poured more tea. You're doing the right thing. It takes courage. I wasn't sure about courage. I felt hollowed out, exhausted, grief-stricken. But I felt something else too. Resolve. Cold. Hard, unshakable resolve. Michael and Jessica had made their choices. They would live with the consequences, and I would survive to see justice done. They came on Sunday morning, exactly 2 weeks after my world had shattered. Barbara was at church. I was alone in her house, drinking coffee and reviewing documents for my deposition scheduled for Monday. The doorbell rang at 9 o'clock. I looked through the peephole, and my blood ran cold. Michael and Jessica stood on the porch, dressed impeccably. Michael in the navy suit he wore to important meetings, Jessica in a cream dress that made her look innocent and fragile. They looked like they were attending a funeral. Perhaps they were. I called Detective Chen immediately. They're here, at Barbara's house. Don't open the door. I'm sending a unit. No, I said, surprising myself. I want to hear what they have to say. But stay on the line. Record this. I set my phone on the entry table, speaker on, recording active. Then I opened the door but kept the security chain engaged. Mom. Michael's voice was soft, pleading. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all we're asking. Say what you need to say from there. Jessica stepped forward, tears already streaming down her face. Margaret, I'm begging you. Please don't do this. Think about what this will do to the family, to Michael's career, to all of us. We can fix this privately. We can get you help. Help? The word came out sharp. Like the help you gave me when you poisoned my food? Michael's expression flickered. Just for a moment, I saw the mask slip. Anger, cold and vicious, flashed across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by the concerned son again. Mom, you're not well. This paranoia, these accusations, they're symptoms. We've consulted with doctors. Early-stage dementia can cause delusions, false memories. I have video evidence. Video can be misinterpreted. You need psychiatric evaluation, not police involvement. He moved closer to the door, his voice dropping to that reasonable, persuasive tone he used to close sales. Think about this rationally. What's more likely, that your son tried to kill you, or that you're experiencing age-related cognitive decline? The gaslighting was masterful. If I had been anyone else, if I had doubted myself even slightly, I might have believed him. But I had the blood work. I had the video. I had Detective Chen's investigation. Step back from the door, Michael. He didn't. Instead, he pressed closer, his hand on the doorframe. I'm not leaving until you agree to drop this. You're destroying lives, Mom. My job, our future, your own reputation. Is this really what you want your legacy to be? The crazy old woman who accused her innocent son? Innocent? I felt something snap inside me. I have you on camera pouring poison into my orange juice. You made me sick for months. You were killing me, Michael. Slowly, methodically killing your own mother for money. The mask shattered completely. His face twisted with rage, all pretense of concern evaporating like smoke. For money? He laughed, harsh and bitter. You think this is about money? Mom, you have no idea what you've put me through. 43 years of being your perfect son, your golden boy, having to live up to Dad's memory, having to pretend I gave a damn about your boring life and your pathetic hobbies. Do you know how exhausting it is to pretend to love someone? Jessica grabbed his arm. Michael, stop. He shook her off. No. She wants the truth? Fine. I've hated these Sunday dinners for years. Hated listening to your stories about the library, about your dead husband, about your empty life. You were supposed to die quickly, peacefully, and instead you held on like a stubborn cockroach. So yes, I helped things along, and I don't regret it. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Jessica looked horrified. I kept my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. Thank you for that confession, Michael. Detective Chen has been listening to this entire conversation. His face went white. He stared at my phone on the entry table. The screen lit up with an active call. For one terrible moment, I thought he might break through the door, might hurt me right there with witnesses listening. Instead, he stepped back slowly, his expression transforming into something I didn't recognize. Cold calculation, dead eyes. You'll regret this, he said softly. Whatever happens, however this ends, you'll regret choosing them over your own son. I already regret, I said. I regret every moment I failed as a mother to teach you that human life has value. But I won't regret surviving. They left. I watched through the window as they argued in the driveway, Michael's gestures sharp and angry, Jessica crying. Then they drove away. I closed the door, locked it, picked up my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Did you get all that? I asked Chen. Every word. Margaret, that was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. He could have hurt you. I know. My legs gave out. and I sank onto Barbara's couch. But it's over now, isn't it? He confessed. Yes, Chen said with satisfaction. He confessed. We'll have an arrest warrant by tomorrow morning. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt only a deep, aching sorrow. My son had looked me in the eye and told me he didn't love me, had never loved me. That was somehow worse than the poison. But beneath the sorrow, something else stirred. Determination. He thought I would regret this? He was wrong. I would see this through. For myself. For every parent who trusted their children. For justice. Let him come. I was ready. The arrest happened Monday morning at Michael's office. Detective Chen called me with the news. He had been taken into custody without incident, booked on charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, and assault with a deadly weapon. Jessica was arrested simultaneously at their home. Both were denied bail. The judge considered them flight risks. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Those weeks were a blur of preparation. Depositions, evidence review, meetings with the prosecutor. Assistant District Attorney Rachel Morrison was a sharp woman in her 50s who treated me not as a fragile victim, but as her star witness. "Margaret, I won't lie to you," she said during one of our sessions. "Michael's defense team is excellent. They'll try to discredit you, paint you as confused or vindictive. They'll argue the video is ambiguous, that the blood work could have other explanations. Are you prepared for that?" "I'm prepared to tell the truth." "Good. That's all we need." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. I had imagined something from television, dramatic, imposing. Instead, it was just a room with wood paneling and uncomfortable benches. Barbara sat behind me in the gallery, her presence a steady comfort. Donald Pritchard sat beside her. Michael was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I searched his face for any remnant of my son, any flicker of remorse or love. I found nothing but cold assessment, as if he were calculating odds, planning his next move. Jessica sat separately with her lawyer, looking small and defeated. She had taken the plea deal, testimony against Michael in exchange for a reduced sentence of 7 years. Her lawyer had successfully argued she was a manipulated spouse, though I knew the truth was more complicated. The hearing began. The prosecutor presented evidence methodically. The blood work showing arsenic and ethylene glycol poisoning. My medical records documenting months of unexplained illness. The video of Michael contaminating my orange juice. Purchase records for chemicals. Internet search histories for untraceable poisons and natural death from poisoning. Phone records of conversations between Michael and Jessica discussing my poor health. Then it was Michael's defense attorney's turn. David Brenner was exactly what I expected. Expensive suit, silver hair, a voice like warm honey designed to persuade. "Mrs. Patterson," he began, his tone gentle. "You're 72 years old, correct?" "Yes." "And you live alone, have since your husband died 5 years ago?" "Yes." "You've experienced some memory issues lately, haven't you? Forgetting appointments, losing things?" "No," I said firmly. "My memory is fine." "Really? Didn't you tell your doctor last year that you were concerned about forgetfulness?" I paused. I had mentioned something to Dr. Harrison about forgetting where I'd put my car keys. Once. I mentioned misplacing my keys. "That's not memory loss, Mr. Brenner. That's being human." "But you're taking medication for anxiety, aren't you?" "Since my husband died. That's normal grief." "And isn't it true that you and Michael had arguments about your eating habits before all this began? That he was concerned about your health?" "He told me I ate too much for my age. That's not concern. That's cruelty." Brenner smiled slightly, as if I'd proven his point. "Or perhaps it was legitimate concern that you've misinterpreted through the lens of anxiety and grief? Mrs. Patterson, isn't it possible you saw my client adding vitamins to your orange juice, supplements he thought would help your health, and your troubled mental state led you to misinterpret his intentions? The audacity took my breath away. Vitamins. He was actually trying to argue that. "Mr. Brenner," I said, my voice cold and clear, "I have arsenic in my blood. That's not a vitamin. But can you prove my client put it there? The video shows him adding something to a beverage. We have no proof what that substance was. It could have been a nutritional supplement. The poisoning could have come from any number of environmental sources." "Your client confessed," I interrupted, "on a recorded phone call with Detective Chen listening. He admitted he poisoned me. He said, and I quote, 'I helped things along.'" Brenner's expression flickered. That conversation was coerced, taken out of context. He said he hated me. He said he'd been pretending to love me for years. He said I was supposed to die quickly. My voice remained steady, despite the tears threatening to fall. "Those aren't the words of a concerned son, Mr. Brenner. Those are the words of a murderer." The courtroom was silent. I saw the judge, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes, leaning forward slightly, watching me intently. Brenner tried to recover, asked more questions about my mental state, my relationship with Michael, possible grudges. But I had truth on my side, and truth was unshakable. I answered each question with calm precision, never losing my composure, never letting him rattle me. Finally, he gave up. No further questions. The prosecutor called Jessica next. She walked to the witness stand like a woman going to her execution, her face pale, her hands trembling. Rachel Morrison was merciless. "Miss Patterson, did you know your husband was poisoning his mother?" "Yes." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Did you help him plan it?" He told me she was suffering, that she wanted to." "That's not what I asked. Did you help him plan it?" A long pause. Then, "Yes." "Did you help him acquire the poison?" "Yes." "Did you discuss with him how long it would take, how much to use?" "Yes." "Did you warn Margaret Patterson that she was being poisoned?" "No." "Why not?" Jessica's face crumpled. "Because I wanted the money too." The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order, but the damage was done. Jessica's testimony had demolished any hope of Michael's defense. She corroborated everything: the planning, the execution, the months of systematic poisoning, the discussions about the inheritance. When Michael took the stand in his own defense, he tried to maintain his composure, but I could see the cracks forming. His story kept changing. First he was helping me, then he was adding vitamins, then he claimed I had done it to myself for attention. Each new explanation contradicted the last. The prosecutor played the recording of his porch confession. His voice filled the courtroom. "I've hated these Sunday dinners for years. You were supposed to die quickly. I helped things along." I watched him as he listened to his own words, watched him realize he had lost. The calculation in his eyes gave way to something else: rage, impotent, and bitter. The judge ruled there was sufficient evidence for trial. Michael would remain in custody without bail. The trial date was set for 6 weeks later. As they led him from the courtroom, Michael looked at me one last time. "I hope you're happy," he said. I met his eyes steadily. "I'm alive. That's all I need to be." The trial lasted 8 days. 8 days of testimony, evidence, expert witnesses explaining the medical effects of arsenic and antifreeze poisoning, character witnesses who tried and failed to paint Michael as a loving son. The courtroom was packed every day. Reporters, curious onlookers, members of our community who had known us for years. I testified for 6 hours across 2 days. Rachel Morrison walked me through every detail: the months of illness, the weight loss, the nausea and dizziness, the Sunday dinners where Michael commented on my eating, the shocking discovery of poison in my blood, the video evidence. I remained calm throughout, answering questions with precision, never embellishing, never exaggerating. Michael's defense tried everything. They brought in a psychologist who speculated about delusional disorder in elderly patients. The prosecutor dismantled him on cross-examination. Doctor, can delusional disorder create arsenic in someone's bloodstream? They tried to argue I had poisoned myself for attention. Rachel Morrison played the video again, freezing it on Michael's face as he carefully poured poison into my orange juice. Does that look like a woman poisoning herself? They tried to paint me as a vindictive mother angry about Michael's independence, his marriage, his life choices. Barbara testified about our friendship, about how I had always spoken proudly of Michael, how I had bragged about his success. Donald Pritchard testified about my estate, proving that I had never threatened to disinherit Michael, had always planned to leave him everything, until he tried to kill me for it. The medical evidence was irrefutable. Dr. Harrison testified about the levels of poison in my blood, levels that should have been fatal. Mrs. Patterson is extraordinarily resilient, he said. But another month, maybe 2, and we would have been conducting an autopsy. Jessica's testimony was devastating. She described in detail how Michael had researched poisons online, how he had purchased chemicals through various untraceable online sources, how he had practiced dosing, carefully calibrated amounts designed to mimic natural illness, to avoid suspicion. She described their conversations about my death, about the inheritance, about their plans for the money. He said she'd lived long enough, Jessica testified, her voice breaking. He said she was just taking up space, that she'd be happier dead anyway, and I believed him. God help me, I believed him. The defense tried to attack her credibility. She had taken a plea deal, she was saving herself, but her testimony was too detailed, too specific, corroborated by too much other evidence. Michael's turn to testify was a disaster. Rachel Morrison was surgical in her cross-examination. Mr. Patterson, do you love your mother? Of course. But the words sounded hollow. Then why did you tell Detective Chen, and I quote, I've hated these Sunday dinners for years? I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Did you mean it when you said you were supposed to die quickly? That was taken out of context. What context makes that acceptable, Mr. Patterson? Silence. Did you pour poison into your mother's orange juice? I was adding supplements. Supplements that contain arsenic and ethylene glycol? I didn't know. You researched untraceable poisons online. The prosecution has your search history. You knew exactly what you were doing. He had no answer. His lawyer objected repeatedly, but the damage accumulated with each question, each contradiction, each exposed lie. The closing arguments were powerful. Michael's defense attorney tried to create reasonable doubt, to suggest that the evidence was circumstantial, that Jessica was lying to save herself, that I was a confused elderly woman with a grudge. But his words rang hollow against the mountain of evidence. Rachel Morrison's closing was simple and devastating. Michael Patterson systematically poisoned his own mother for months, bringing her to the edge of death, all to inherit her estate. He was caught on video. He confessed on a recorded phone call. His wife has testified to the planning and execution of this crime. This is not a case of misunderstanding or family conflict. This is attempted murder, premeditated and cruel. Margaret Patterson survived by pure luck and her own determination. Find Michael Patterson guilty and send the message that murdering your parents for money will not be tolerated in this community. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they filed back in, I couldn't read their faces. The foreperson stood, a middle-aged man who had spent the entire trial taking careful notes. On the count of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of assault with a deadly weapon, how do you find? Guilty. Michael's face went white. His lawyer's hand was on his shoulder, but he shook it off. He turned to look at me, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw my son again. Not the monster who had poisoned me, but the little boy who had once needed me. Then it was gone. He looked away. At sentencing 2 weeks later, the judge was unsparing. "Mr. Patterson, you committed one of the most heinous crimes imaginable. You tried to murder your own mother, slowly and painfully, motivated purely by greed. You betrayed every bond of family and trust. This court sentences you to 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Michael showed no emotion. He was led away in chains, and I never saw him again. Jessica received her 7-year sentence. She would be eligible for parole in 5. It was over. Finally. Completely. Over. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around me. I gave a brief statement, my voice steady. Justice has been served. I hope this case reminds people that elder abuse, in all its forms, is a serious crime. If you suspect someone you love is being harmed, speak up. Don't wait. I was lucky. Many others aren't. Barbara drove me home, not to Barbara's house, but to my own house. It had been 3 months since I'd stepped inside. The police had released it after processing it as a crime scene. It smelled stale, looked dusty, felt empty. But it was mine. I had survived to reclaim it. That night, I sat in my living room, the same room where Michael had grown up, where we had celebrated holidays, where my husband had died, and I cried. Not for Michael, not anymore. I cried for the son I thought I had, for the family I thought I'd built, for the illusion that had been shattered. Then I dried my tears, made myself tea, and began planning my future. 6 months later, my life looked nothing like it had before. I had sold the house. Too many ghosts, too many memories tainted by betrayal. The sale brought a substantial profit in the hot real estate market. Combined with my savings and the rental properties, I found myself with resources I'd never expected to have. I bought a smaller condo in a senior living community 20 minutes away, a beautiful place with gardens, a library, social activities, and most importantly, security. My neighbors were people my age who had lived full lives and had stories to share. No more Sunday dinners eaten alone, waiting for a son who secretly wished me dead. The community had a volunteer coordinator who helped match residents with local charities. I started working with an elder abuse prevention organization, speaking at community centers about my experience, helping to train social workers to recognize the signs of familial abuse. It was hard at first, telling my story to strangers, seeing the horror and pity in their eyes. But it was also healing. "You're saving lives," the organization's director told me after one particularly emotional presentation. 3 people came forward after hearing you speak. 3 people who might have died if they'd stayed silent. Barbara remained my closest friend, visiting weekly, dragging me to movies and art exhibits, and a book club she'd joined. She introduced me to her circle of friends, vibrant women in their 60s and 70s who refused to let age define them. We took a weekend trip to Niagara Falls. I learned to play mahjong. I laughed more in those 6 months than I had in years. Donald Pritchard helped me establish a charitable foundation in Robert's name, focused on elder advocacy and abuse prevention. It felt right, using the money Michael had tried to kill me for, to help protect others from men like him. My health had returned completely. The chelation therapy and medications had cleared the poison from my system. Dr. Harrison pronounced me in excellent health for my age, better than before actually, because I was walking daily, eating well, sleeping soundly. No more nausea, no more dizziness, no more fear. I heard through Donald that Michael's life in prison was precisely what one would expect. He had been attacked twice by other inmates, apparently even in prison. Men who harm their mothers are viewed with particular contempt. He had been placed in protective custody, spending 23 hours a day in a small cell, isolated and alone. "He's tried to appeal 3 times, Donald told me over coffee one afternoon. All denied. He's attempted to contact you through various channels, letters, requests for visitation. I've blocked them all, as you requested. Good. I felt nothing when I thought about Michael now. Not love, not hate, just a distant sadness for what could have been. He had made his choices. Now he lived with them. Jessica had been a model prisoner, apparently. She was taking college courses, attending therapy, participating in victim-to-offender reconciliation programs. She would likely get parole after 5 years instead of 7. Part of me hoped she had genuinely changed. Part of me didn't care. What I cared about was the life I was building, the new friends I was making, the work I was doing to prevent others from suffering what I had suffered. One afternoon, I received a letter from a woman named Patricia, whose daughter-in-law had been slowly poisoning her. She had recognized the signs from my presentation at her church and had gone to the police. Now her daughter-in-law was in prison, and Patricia was recovering. "You saved my life," she wrote. "I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was just old and sick. Thank you for having the courage to speak up." I kept that letter in my desk drawer, reading it whenever I felt the weight of what I'd lost. It reminded me that my survival had meaning beyond just myself. My 73rd birthday was celebrated with 20 new friends in the community center, complete with a cake Barbara had ordered. Chocolate, my favorite, which I ate without guilt or fear. No one told me I ate too much for my age. No one measured my portions or watched me with calculating eyes. I blew out the candles and made a wish, not for the past to be different, but for the future to be long and full of moments like this, surrounded by people who genuinely cared, living without fear, free. That evening, alone in my condo, I stood on my small balcony watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, beautiful and temporary. I thought about second chances, about resilience, about the strange paths life takes. I had lost my son, but found myself. I had faced death and chosen life. I had been betrayed by family, but discovered community. A Michael had tried to take everything from me: my life, my dignity, my trust. Instead, he had given me something he never intended: clarity. I knew now what truly mattered, who I really was, what I was capable of surviving. I was 73 years old, healthy, purposeful, and genuinely content. I had won. Thank you for listening. Remember, you are stronger than you know, and your life is worth fighting for.